Welcome to Podnutz, the computer repair podcast, episode number 215. How much money can you make? I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. We answer your questions on running and operating your computer repair business. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Ninja, the simple-to-use remote monitoring and management solution. Try it free at info.ninjamsp.com/podnuts. Let me introduce the co-host. We have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. How you doing, Paco?
Better than good, better than most.
Awesome, man. And we also have Chris Carruthers from Remote Support Tech Team. How you doing, Chris?
I am terrified about how Civil War II is going to go.
Okay. Oh. And we also have Amit Mehta from TechVoo. Amit, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Great to have you on the show. And I love your blue headphones. They're nice and shiny.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and start off the new year. We're in 2017 now. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. I look back at my calendar and I've been podcasting for 32 whole months. Unbelievable. Anyways, so let's go ahead and start off with a tip or a story that people could learn from. Paco, why don't you go ahead and kick that off?
Sure. So the story I would have is a data transfer job or data recovery job that I had this past Friday downtown Chicago. So when we got the call in Wednesday, the office manager had said, hey, we have a real ancient computer that we are transferring data to a new PC at another location because we're moving. Is there any chance you could help us out with that? Yeah, sure. No problem. Now, a lot of people, when they say ancient, I'm thinking XP 2000 right. Or, something like that nature, Vista. So I show up and I see this huge CRT monitor and I see this older than sin HP that was running Windows 98. No USB drives or USB ports, etc. So it made me remember that my data transfer stuff is on USB 2.0. So with that and how slow this PC was, it took literally 2 hours to grab all the stuff off of it, walk the 3 minutes to the new building and transfer everything to the new PC within like 10, 15 minutes. So so I need to upgrade my tools from us talking about this on the last episode. And I will be getting a 3.0 hard drive because essentially I had to take the hard drive out in order to be able to transfer this data because there's no USB ports, there's no whatever, there's no CD burner. And, this guy, I think, had like 500 megs of data, maybe, or maybe 600 megs on 2 different drives. So
now I guess the only thing you could do, I still keep one in my toolkit, believe it or not. I have an IDE to USB dongle. I know it's not it's a weird word, but it's a true word. Okay. It's basically a USB that you can actually plug into any computer, and it has a power strip with it that you plug in the wall, so it gives it power and all that kind of stuff. And so you take your old IDE drives, you're going to transfer that data right over to it. It's
I use the one with the cable that has like for the USB. Yeah, so that's what I had. I need to get a USB 3.0 one because this one was just murder and waiting all that time. Yep, you got it. That's my story.
Cool. All right. And Chris, why don't you go ahead and share something with us?
Sure. Well, first off, actually, it's funny because I mentioned Civil War. I didn't notice that Paco has this huge Civil War poster up on his. All I have to say is protect the future. Okay. Anyway, moving forward from that, this week I started actually getting legitimate emails and phone calls from some of the how-to videos that I put up on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
So, something that it was kind of nice because, I could send it to that's what I did. I would have a customer ask me how to do something. So I'd make a video and then send them the link to the video. And that generated more requests. So YouTube has actually made me money.
That's good because most people can't say that.
Most people can't say that. And I can at this point. So that's my story for the week.
All right. Very good.
The holidays made us really slow here.
Gotcha. So would you tell people out there that are running their business that it's probably a good idea to make how-to videos so they don't have to explain the basic things over and over again? They can send somebody a link or to send them to a YouTube video and say, here, check this out. And it not only is you're not sending them to somebody else, you're sending them to yourself from the past.
What?
I know it's new technology.
I know. Well, I mean, if we can get data to move at the speed of light, I guess time does distort. Probably not that far though. But no, I would say that it depends. Like most things that we talk about in this show. For me, it works out really well because I have people who are on managed services. I have people who are paying monthly for me to take care of certain aspects of their business. So for me to make a how-to video on how to do something that is a covered service, it makes perfect sense for me. Because when they email me and say, hey, Chris, how do I do this real quick? I can say, hey, listen, watch this video. If you have any problems after that, let me know. Saves me a lot of time, and then they share the link with their friends. It puts more out there. It's the same as doing a newsletter or doing anything that is connecting you with your customers and showing them that you are an expert in your field and you want to help them. And that's the type of community and the type of feeling that I've been fostering with my customers.
Very good. I like that explanation. All right, Amit, you are a newcomer to the panel, but what type of information would you have to share with the audience? It could be a story, it could be a tip, a little bit of both, doesn't really matter.
Sure. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, what we did is, so December is our busy month, so that's sort of the background here. December is probably twice the revenue of any other month of the year for us. Wow. And a lot of that has to do with the annual nature of some of the things that we bill, like domains and web hosting and whatnot, and Office 365. But what we ended up doing, and what I did, is because it's busy for us because a lot of our customers want to get the expense within the year. So if they're thinking about a firewall, a server, something big, whatever it may be, they want to get it in within 2016, for example, rather than let the income hit or the expense hit in 2017. It's a good business decision for them. And so what I did is a couple of weeks ago, sent out an email to everyone that's our business customer that I thought may be interested in buying anything, and letting them know that, hey, give us a heads up by December 14th, or something to give us some time to, if you're planning on trying to get expenses into 2016. And so these business owners that otherwise they think of all the normal stuff to buy, like their vehicle and other things within the year, they don't always think about their IT. So it generated a good chunk of extra business for us simply to just reach out and let them know, hey, we're ready, and just give us a heads up 2 weeks before the end of the year. And if you need a new firewall, router, server, wireless access, whatever it is, let us get it in for you within 2016, and you can claim the expense. And so it's something that really we've started doing over the last only year or two, but it may work for your business too.
Absolutely. No, that's a great tip. I think people need to take advantage of that. A lot of times people tend to think it slows down at Christmas time, but I think doing what you did, you can create that revenue and get that end of the year push. That's awesome. All right. I had an issue. This was a while back, and this was before the whole blow up of my computer. And if you want to hear that story, you can go back and listen to Podnutz Daily 478. And I'll explain all that. But a couple weeks ago, or probably about 4 weeks ago, I had an issue where something happened with my Windows operating system. Not sure what. I was starting to have problems. And so I was trying to figure out what was going on. And so I decided to go into msconfig and do a selective startup, which I've done. It's not a big deal. Go in there, hit selective startup, hit reboot, computer comes back up. And the unfortunate thing, it also shut down the login for Windows 10. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, there's a handful of things I can do to fix this problem. And quite honestly, the easiest thing for me to do at the time, and this is why I have this set up, is I have an Acronis image that I back up weekly. I don't do it daily because I don't really change that much stuff on a daily basis, but week to week I do add things. So I had an image of my operating system, which is on my SSD, and I basically threw in the disk and got Acronis mounter to come up and basically pointed it to the file, and it had my system back up and running in like less than 10 minutes. And so I didn't have to go in there and try to figure out what was going on. I started having other problems, which came up to a replacement of a motherboard. But again, you can hear about that on Podnutz Daily 478. And so that was my snafu. And I like Acronis. It's worked for me every time. I use version 2016 right now, and not a problem with it. I've done this several times actually, recovery systems. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll get into our main topic. Our show today is brought to you by Ninja, the remote monitoring and management solution to help you become more efficient, more productive, and more profitable. With Ninja, you can have a faster fix response time and offer preventative maintenance to your customers. Ninja understands what you need to run your business, which is why their RMM solution is integrated with tools that you use every day. Ninja provides competitive pricing, patch management, antivirus, email, SMS alerting. You can be up and running quickly with minimum training time. You have TeamViewer integration for that remote support. It's one solution for managed and non-managed clients alike. You have network visibility inside the RMM. You can see what's going on inside your network. Easy to read dashboards, which I love. Ninja is always adding new features like their latest beta release, a powerful new device search where you can create custom queries and export the lists to show your customers. A new executive style report showing important system metrics such as health score, software added or removed, hardware changes, and TeamViewer connections. Ninja is offering Podnutz a free 30-day trial when you decide to buy a 10% discount. To take advantage of this offer, go to info.ninjamsp.com/Podnutz. All right. We are going to go into another controversial topic because it's what I like to do. What kind of money can you make in the IT field working for yourself? Now, this has been somewhat of a taboo, something people don't like to talk about. And so I've had conversations with certain individuals, and we've talked about what types of money can be made. And we hear in the different forums and groups and stuff, we hear different people going, I charge this exorbitant amount of money. And to them, it's normal for the area they live in. So I did a little bit of research and came up with some of the different population centers in certain areas to kind of show the differences between the two, and so that you can take this information and look at your area and make an informed decision on what you can do and what you should be looking at making. So the first thing I did was I took my own area. And for anybody that knows, I live in a 36 square mile radius in a city called Canton, Michigan. Now, for anybody that knows, 36 miles or 36 square miles is basically 6 miles by 6 miles. Reason that's important is townships back in the day was made that way so that you could get your horse and buggy from your house to the town center and back home in the same day. So with that being said, so it's a nice square area anyways. In my area, we have a little bit over 90,000 people. Okay, about 32,000 households. About 2.7 people per household in a median household income of 76,000. Now, I've rounded numbers up and down just to make the numbers easier. So these aren't exact numbers, but you can look them up online. So, I mean, they're pretty close, within a few hundred. So a lot of the times we've looked at things like median income and we've said, okay, that median income means that's an average. Not really. And I didn't realize this either. Median incomes means what it means, right in the middle. And so if you have 90,000 people, right, you basically have 45,000 people that have a household income less than 76,000, and you've got 45,000 people that has a household income of more than 76,000. Okay. So when you're looking at that area and you're going, okay, oh, that's pretty good. A lot of people will say that's high, that's low. It doesn't really matter. You're going to have to do it for your area. Now, to contrast this with some people that maybe charge a lot more and we can't figure out how they do it, let's take another area that's 45 square miles. Not that much bigger, really. It's 6.7 miles by 6.7 miles. But if you have 600,000 people in that same area, we got about 230,000 households with the average of 2.6 per household, and the median household income is 71,000. Okay. So that means that 300,000 make less than 71,000, 300,000 make more than 71,000 household income. Now with those, and I know I've got the perfect people on this panel because I know Amit and Paco, I know you guys are big time into metrics, and I think you even are to a little bit, Chris. But looking at these different things, so depending on looking at the two areas, if I ask this question to go, okay, one has a median household income of 71,000, the other has a median household income of 76,000, where can I charge more? And most of the time, the answer you will hear is, well, the 76,000. No. And the reason is because you have less people in the area that has 76,000. You have less people that are making more than 76,000 and less than. And you have this other area that has, what is that? Five times the amount. I mean, it's astronomically different. You have a lot more people with a lot more spendable income. So therefore you can charge a lot more in that area. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So now, with that being said, I want to hear from you guys. What types of things do you look for when you're looking for making an annual income? And let me explain this real quick. There is a difference between gross and net. And gross is not what you keep. Net is.
It depends on how you file your taxes, Jeff.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you should be filing your taxes. Just saying.
Okay.
So if you have this gross amount, everybody always concentrates on gross because it sounds cool. Man, when I go, my business made 600,000, man, I am kicking down doors and taking names. And the reality is, okay, that's all fine and dandy. 600,000 sounds great. Oh, wait, you 600,000? You have 7 employees? Oh, and you get health insurance costs and building costs and all these different things that factor in. Okay. And you're not keeping 600,000. As a matter of fact, a lot of times you're keeping a lot less than the 600,000, which some people would look at and go, why am I doing this? So anyways, from your guys' aspect, what things do you look for as far as what do you think people in this industry that are in business for themselves, whether they have a storefront, whether they work out of their home, doesn't really matter. There's different ways to skin the cat, but how do you come up with an amount that you can live on?
I'll start if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I think generally speaking, the approach shouldn't be what should I try to make out of the business. It should always be, let me make the maximum possible. And that maximum possible will depend on a lot of factors, So there's a simple fact that you have to make enough to live, right? I mean, unless it's a hobby. And I understand if some people do it as a hobby, they want to make, $10,000 for the year, good for them. But if some are making a living on this, then depending on where you live, there's some amount that's going to define what making a living is. So I think at a bottom level, absolutely, that's what you should shoot for, because you want to at least be able to get by and pay your bills. But on the upside, IT is great because it's sort of like healthcare. It's never going anywhere. It's in demand, and you can find so many customers. Even with competition in the area, there's really no limit to how much you're going to be able to do as you grow and as you provide value. Right, end of the day, you're going to charge money for providing value. So, I think we can talk a little bit more about numbers, but I'll put in my sort of upfront 2 cents, and then we'll go around.
Sounds good. All right, who's next? Chris?
Me? Sure. So, I love that it depends thing that I keep saying, because it does depend. When I was trying to decide where I was going to have my company, that I really had 2 big choices. I had the city of Barrie, which is where I am and where I ultimately chose to be. And last census, which I think was in 2011, there was about 135,000 people here in town. The other place that I was considering was a town called Glencoe, which has a 4-digit population. So you can imagine that, the pricing structure is going to be very different in those 2 places.
Right.
And what it comes down to is, what can the market bear? How much can people afford to pay for services so that you can get that, 10% of the population coming to you? Because really and truly, in a lot of places, that's where it winds up coming down to when you're living in a big city. So So, when I was setting my prices, when I was making all of these decisions, the decision I was making was, okay, how much money do I need to make every month so that I can afford everything? I made that determination. How much do I need to charge so that I can have that money coming in with 20 hours worth of billable time per week? And is that crazy? What's the third question, right? And the answer wound up being something like $50 an hour, which I thought at the time was crazy. Now I know how naive I was. But as your company progresses, right, things do change. And what I find is the more clout that you have, the more people you have recommending you, the more people recognize your name when it's mentioned, the higher that price tag goes. And, I was able to successfully take a crazy $50 an hour price and eventually increase that to $129 an hour as the most expensive person in town. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that because I'm still bringing customers. I'm still doing all of those things because the market can bear that price. I've put myself into that 10%.
Nice. Very good.
So that's the way that I looked at it. And hopefully that will help somebody else get there.
Right. And this is all for making people think. All right, Paco.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I'm actually starting to do all this now, being that I just started being full-time as in the new year. So I haven't got into too much of the analytics of this yet because I've been researching and kind of handling some back-end stuff on my own. But as our good friend John Dubinsky always says, you always charge as much as humanly possible. So, with that being said, it's a very big thing to try and figure out because a lot of people, when they go full time or, if they're doing this as part time just to come up with some part time income, the first thing they do is they compare it to their expenses, right? So you got to figure out how much you're paying for your expenses, the core things that really need to be paid for. And that should give you some type of good basis to get at least a minimum. You shouldn't settle for that, but at least, as like Amit had mentioned earlier, that you got to get what you can get to live. Now, it's hard to try and figure all that out because once you have that number, how much should you actually charge? How much should you go ahead and take in? And this is a conversation me and you had not too long ago where, you got to do some research. For me, since I'm in a huge city, and I'm trying to specifically attack particular areas. So I'm focusing on zip codes where, hey, my office is located in downtown Chicago. So I'm going to focus on 2 zip codes, 60606 and 60607, which are the 2 areas in my zip code. Look at the population, the median, see who's actually there, which will then help me with my targeting on any of my marketing moving forward. Now, this gives you 2 options. Either A, the population there are the type of customers that you want to have. If you find out that they're not, then that's a choice for you to figure out, okay, where do I want to service to find those customers? Because sometimes, like we talked about before, where, when we first start out, we try and take anything and everything up front. But when you get to a point where you try to really get down and understand what your niche is, how much you really need to make, the actual funds that you want to try and produce, the area may not be for you. And there may be an area of maybe 2-3 miles down that's going to work better for you. So those are some of the things you want to try and figure out. You want to obviously, measure twice, cut once. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I can't say specifically on what numbers and I'm trying to do. All I know is that there's still a lot for me to look into. And I have a couple months for me to figure it out before it starts really getting down to, running and trying to figure it all out.
Now, how often, when you're looking at things, and a lot of businesses will raise their prices year to year. Sure. I'll give you an example. Comcast every year raises my stupid bill
and caps you.
Yes, I'm still mad at Comcast. We're still going to have a conversation. I just haven't had a chance yet. But with that being said, how often should we look at what we're doing in our business? Should it be a year-to-year basis? Because there's a lot of people, and I'm watching the chat room a little bit, and I've heard people before say that they will not, or they haven't raised their prices in 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
So here's my answer to that. And my answer is whatever the person is comfortable with. Now, that's just what the answer is. I mean, everyone can say yearly, everyone can say quarterly, everyone can say monthly. It's up to the individual. If that person hasn't raised rates for 5 to 6 years, there's a reason. He got comfortable or he settled. Now that's up to that individual to figure out what his next move is. Is he complacent? Is he about to get out of the game in a year or two? Or, you know, has he not thought of an idea that may scale his business even more? You know, it's up to the individual. And it's up to a lot of the resources and them looking at, you know, for a perfect example, you know, researching and watching our channel and really getting inspired to say, hey, I can actually make more money. Maybe I should go ahead and look into this. Now, me personally, I actually look at it probably every quarter as a hard line. But I try to do it monthly. But unfortunately, since there's so many things being done, and especially me being a single business owner that does the majority of the work, where I do have other guys that help me out, but I do a majority of everything, it's hard to make that line for monthly, and time just passes you. So I make a hard line on my calendar to do it quarterly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with what you just said. It is up to every person. I've changed the prices on my own business. I haven't really changed my white label prices all that much. And it's exactly it, that, you know, you get into the comfort of, this is what I need to charge so that I can pay all of the bills and make a profit and retain the percentage of customers that I want. You know, and we as computer business owners, and really any business, should not be afraid of making a profit. I mean, if we're making a profit, that gives us more to be able to not only improve our own lives so that we can better serve those customers, but to reinvest in our companies so that we can better serve those customers. Right? So we can't be afraid to make money. And I see a lot of not just new technicians, but technicians who've been doing this for years. And I say, hey, when was the last time you took a vacation? Oh, I can't afford to take a vacation. Well, then what are you doing?
Right.
Right. We don't live to work. We work to live. So you need
that. Can I quote that?
You can quote almost anything that I say, Jeff, as long as we're on the air. But no, really, like, you know, we need to put ourselves in a position where we are making a profit. I don't have to charge $129 an hour so that I can eat. Right. That pays for the house, that pays for my kids, that pays for the foods, that pays for all the business expenses. And that puts money into the savings account so that if there is a slow month, or if I actually take a vacation sometime, or, you know, if I want to buy a house, right, I should be able to do all of those things, because Joe working, you know, $20 an hour over at whatever car plant can do that. Why can't I? Don't be afraid to put yourself there.
Don't they give you free houses in Canada?
No, Jeff.
I like that.
We had three choices. Okay, we either got free healthcare, free houses, or free Fruit Loops. We picked the healthcare.
Perfect. I mean,
Yep. Yeah. So, you know, I'll give you sort of the history here of what happened to us. So I will look at pricing really not anywhere near as often as monthly or quarterly, maybe more like every year or so. And the last time we updated it was about 1.5 years ago when we did our rebranding, remodeling of the stores and all of that. And we upped our prices by about 10%, maybe 15% on other things. And so we had talked internally about how how we're handling that with customers and explanations and all that. And the great thing is, you know, because we hadn't updated it in so long, and our prices were relatively, you know, what I thought was low, not a single person asked. You know, so we raised the prices, and it sort of tells you something. I think what these guys are saying right here is very true. Chris and Paco are right that you know, you should push the pricing a little bit, and you know, you're not trying to price gouge anyone, but it needs to be profitable, and you have to be able to provide value and a service. And when you do, the customers are more than willing to pay for it. So, you know, when we slide from anything that was $129 became $149, anything that was $79 became $99, $90 an hour became $99 an hour, $125 an hour became $149 an hour, those sort of things. And it was easily absorbed. It wasn't an issue. And so that all that really tells you is for the last few years, we've been leaving money on the table. And so we've been doing the same work, same training, same all of that, and just charging incorrectly is what it comes down to.
You know, I get tired of basically people telling me all the time, they're like going, is that it? When people say that over and over and over again, you know that you're charging too little.
Yeah.
Now, if I can mention something about what you just talked about, like all the price changes that you made, none of them were crazy. Okay. None of them were huge 50, 75, 100% increases.
Sure.
You stuck with 9s, 5s, and 0s for the end of the pricing, which is perfect because people respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you did lose customers, 5%, if you lost 5% of your customer base, the price increase made up for that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's worth talking about the margin there, right? So let's say on a service like data transfer, if we were making $40, for example. So if we just went from $90 charging them to 99 even, which doesn't sound like a lot, it's $9, but it's roughly 25% greater margin. So $40 profit just went to $50 profit. And I think that's what we forget sometimes is when you take $10 and you add it, that's margin dollars. That's not 10% of anything gross. That's actual $9 more that you have to reinvest in the business, take home, whatever it is. But it's the final dollars that matter always.
Right. And coming back to it a little bit, like, because you're absolutely right. You're adding to the profit, right? That profit that we're not supposed to be scared of that I talked about, that's what we're adding to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now any customers that you do, let's face it, if you raise your price by $1, there's going to be a customer that says, no, I'm not paying that. I want the old price. It's going to happen. That's okay too. Because if you weren't crazy and you didn't make if you didn't double your prices all across the board, and if you didn't increase your prices past where the market can bear in your area, 9 times out of 10, whatever increase that you made, that profit is going to make up for the customers that decide not to use you anymore. So you're not going to lose anything, but you are going to be working less hours. It's going to make more room for more customers. And some of those customers are going to come back. So if you do increase your prices, don't be afraid when you get that first phone call and they're like, listen, I'm not paying the extra $9 an hour. Because let's face it, that's not a customer that you're going to want.
Absolutely.
Right? You want the customer that's willing to pay you an extra $9.
Yep. And especially like you said too, I mean, for those that are charging, let's say, and I'm going to use in my area, if they charge $50 an hour, where the market is asking for much more, the market will tell you if you're too high in your area. I mean, when you get consistent calls saying for a month, 2 months, 3 months, hey, that's too high, then you know that the market doesn't care. Like, I forgot who usually says that, Gary Vaynerchuk. He says the market doesn't care. The market's the market. So if you can get away with how much, so for those who double their rates from 50 to $100 and they're afraid to, because like you just mentioned, I'm going to lose clients. Well, okay, great. They can go to someone else. And then you start getting the clients that will pay the extra $50 because they're new clients. They're good. It's the fear factor for a lot of people. The other piece that I want to add to that is for those that are uncomfortable with raising their rates, there's a reason behind that. If it's not a psychology thing, it's what they believe that they're offering. And what I say that it's not so much of the resources, it's the matter of you being resourceful on what you include with your price adjustment. So for like us, we have a thing where our virus removals, where a place down the street is about, I think it's like $100 or $119 or something. We had ours at $159 for the past year. We just raised it to $179. But guess what? That includes our 12-month virus protection plan, which technically is our warranty. And guess what? If for some reason you get infected within those 12 months, bring it back to us. You won't have to pay $179 again. We're going to give you a discounted rate. I just hooked that customer for not only a higher price, they believe psychology that they have a warranty, plus I still make money because they're going to come back to me when they have a problem. So It's a matter of just getting that over and over. It's being resourceful with your pricing so that it makes sense to you and you're comfortable with it. And in turn, when you're comfortable with it, you can help make the customer that you're trying to sell it to as being comfortable with that service.
Absolutely. I agree with all that. Let's talk a little bit about pricing, because pricing is one of these things. I'm going to say this right out front. The things that we do on a daily or regular basis, we are some smart guys and gals, I'm going to tell you. And we know some things, and we've learned how to fix problems. We've learned how to troubleshoot. We've learned how to best protect the customer. We've learned all this stuff, and it's knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? But knowledge is also something that people will pay for because they don't want to go out and get the knowledge themselves. So I was looking on salary.com, which we talked about in the past. And I just picked these out of kind of what we do, but this is not even all inclusive. So let's start off and take a PC maintenance technician. Okay. and there's a 1, a 2, and a 3. You beginner, middle, and really old, like me. But you have those 3 levels. Now, the last 2 levels aren't that much different. But so the median income on salary.com for a PC maintenance technician. Now, this has nothing to do with networking or anything, which a lot of us, that's what we do, network. We do it all. We've got everything. But just a PC maintenance technician, median income in the U.S., sorry, I didn't look up Canada's numbers, $42,000. Okay. That's median income. And we're not talking about revenue now. This is what they can make at a job. Okay. Now you go up to a PC maintenance technician 2, their medium salary is $55,000. Now, obviously there's a highs and a lows, right? So the PC maintenance technician 1, there's $33,000 to $53,000. It just depends on what you're doing, who you're working for, all that. Now you jump up into PC maintenance technician 3, which means you have a little bit more knowledge. You've been doing it for a while longer, 5+ years, so on and so forth. And we'll have links for these in the show notes. $57,000 is the median, but it's not much different from the PC maintenance technician 2. It's between $43,000 and $74,000. Technician 2 was $43,000 to $71,000. Anyways, with all those numbers, and you can look those up on your own, there's so many other things we do in our businesses that give us the ability to be able to charge a fair rate. So you have to think about it. Yes, being in business for yourself is great because you have a lot of freedoms, and a lot of people will do it for that fact that they can have the freedom to do what they want. The problem we're running into is there's a lot of people getting out of this business all the time. And why? Because a lot of them are they're working 80 hours a week and they're bringing home $40,000.
Yeah.
Now, to be honest with you, you can make $20 an hour at any given job or whatever, 40 hours a week, spend time with your wife and kids, do whatever you want to do, have your weekends to yourself, and you can make 40 grand. It's really that easy. And then your employer's paying half the taxes and all that kind of stuff. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you want to be able to not only have the freedom in your business, but you want to be able to make enough money where it makes sense. So you shouldn't be working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and bringing home 40 grand. Now, the reason a lot of people can do this is because a lot of people that are in this business, male or female, their spouse or significant other is actually making the other half of the household income. And a lot of times they have the insurance. So there's a lot of things that you don't have to pay for in those scenarios. But what I thoroughly believe this, and it's not just in this industry. I like what Amit said earlier, that this industry is not going anywhere. I don't care what anybody says.
No.
People are going to have electronics for a long time, and they're going to need somebody to fix them because nobody wants to figure it out. And that's what we're here for. We're going to adjust with the times and do what we can do. We're going to protect people from the big bad internet. That's what we do. But I want to look at what is, in my opinion, the minimum amount that you should be making in your business, working 40 hours a week, take home should be about 40 grand. But I thoroughly believe that everybody could make $100,000 take home, working your business with or without employees. Doesn't matter. There's 2 different ways to do it. Both ways it can be done. All right. So now, yes, thank you, Chris. What do you guys, so when we're talking about pricing, now we're talking about annual income. Where do you guys kind of see people at, or where do you see that people should be going, or some of the information I've shared? Go ahead and have your rebuttals.
Those are the Canadian numbers. They seem
we don't count Canadian dollars. It was about the same then.
That's not true. You count 0.8 of a Canadian dollar. That's not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was
on Monopoly. You can break out the Monopoly box. That works. That was unnecessary. All right.
He's fitting quite well.
Look, here's the way that I see. Okay. Well, because we have to be careful, because what we're starting to get into is a conversation. No, okay.
Show I can say whatever I want.
I'm saying that we need to be careful, and I'm the one with the big mouth, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, that's true.
Because we're coming dangerously close to moving into the what do you consider to be success conversation.
No, and let's not talk about that. And let me preface that because I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. Let me preface that. If you're just working 40 hours a week in your business, that's your full-time business, okay? And you're making 40 grand and you're perfectly happy with that, there's nothing wrong with it. Now, here's where I believe it becomes wrong. When you're spending 60, 70, 80 hours a week and you're bringing home 40 grand and your kids and wife don't see you, I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
And I think it can be done right. That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we're just looking at the dollars and we're just looking at, how much time and money should you be putting in and could you be putting into the company to bring that out? I would think that as long as you are bringing home the same amount of money that at least that you would be getting from working that job with the same number of hours, I think that you are not only managing your time properly, but you're also billing appropriately. You could probably be billing more, but you are billing appropriately so that you're not putting yourself in the poorhouse doing it.
Everybody's got to start somewhere, right? And the whole point to this is we don't want people to get out of this business. There's plenty of business to go around. I don't care what anybody says. I like what you guys said earlier. 10% of the market, depending on the market you're in, some have to travel a little bit farther and some not so much.
Yeah.
But there is a market there that everybody can attack, or I shouldn't say attack, that everybody can have a little piece of that pie and make a good living at.
Yeah. And like my goal had always been make it to 6-figure gross, because before, again, I was really naive when I started this company. Right. And so I thought, man, if I was making like 10 grand a month, that would be amazing. I could brag to all my friends about how much money I was making. And then when I got to 10 grand a month, I was like, oh man, this is so great. I'm making $10,000 a month. Where's all my money? Where did all my money go? Right now, I mean, that was a momentary question because I actually had proper bookkeeping. I could go through and see where all my expenses were. That wasn't really the problem. But the problem is that, to make money, you have to spend money. So I had a really decent car. I had that Lincoln that you got to see that I don't have anymore, Jeff. I have a minivan now because I have too many kids.
Sorry.
Yeah. Right. But, so I had vehicle expenses, I had cell phone expenses, I had employee expenses, I had, right. And so everything started to add up. So the question doesn't become how much money should I be making? The question becomes how much money should be in my bank account?
Right.
Based off of how many months that I've been working, based off of how much I should be putting into my savings account. So if you really want to have a good idea of how much money you should be making, do yourself a favor at the end of the month. Do you have $1,000 more in there than you did the same time last month? How about the month after that? Do you have another 1,000? Can you put $1,000 a month into a savings account and still afford to eat?
I like it. Good. All right. Let's hear others' thoughts on this. Amit?
Sure. So, I like the idea of what Chris just said, where you want to make sure that at least you're net positive month on month, whether it's $1,000 or $50 or 50,000. I mean, that's up to you to determine as a business owner. But the point is, you have to couple that with what you said, Jeff, which is, look at what you could make in the fair market. If you are out there working, and realistically, let's say a lot of jobs now you're working 50 hours a week. Not everything's exactly 40, but yeah, you work a little extra. You work 50 hours a week. But there is a value to things like the 401 and things like having health insurance, whether your spouse has it or not. There's values to those things. So really, in effect, that salary of 40,000, let's say, that you would otherwise say you would get, you're really getting the value equivalent of maybe 55 or so, or 60 by the time your employer puts everything in. And so if you're not able to pull that on your own, working either for yourself or with employees or partners, whatever it is, then you have to wonder, is there a different long-term reason for it? Because longer term doesn't necessarily get any easier. Maybe your marketing expense goes down and customers will come to you more easily because you've been around, but you're not necessarily going to become more net profitable just by being alive longer. So Yeah, yeah, as much as you'd love to. Yeah. So, I think from a dollars and cents perspective, we probably need to look at numbers like 40, 50, of course. I mean, as a baseline, but realistically, you want to be making into six figures, especially if you're going to spend the amount of time where you're spending 60, 70 hours a week, as you said, and so many of us do. I mean, I think you're right on when you say you've met these other computer repair business owners, you talk to them, and so many live the life like many of us do. We're working 70 or sometimes even more hours per week, and so the question is, though, is it worth it? And I'm sure in many cases it is, but in the times that it's not, in the times that someone is taking home only 40 or 50,000 a year for doing that, then you have to reevaluate. You have to look at what changes can you make, and it doesn't mean you have to leave the business. It means what changes can you make, because so many other people are doing it and taking home more. So just it's time to tweak. That's all it is. It's time to tweak the business and decide what you're going to offer, how you're going to offer it, and what your processes are. Because as I've learned over the years, process makes such a big difference. Whether it's how you intake, what you ask. It's the McDonald's, would you like fries with that? Simple thing, and there's a reason that's just brilliant. It's brilliant. And then if you remember when we were growing up, they didn't take credit cards at places like fast food, right? And now it's again, there's a reason. Yeah, there's reason. Those are the process things I mean, like how we do our business. If you never took credit cards, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you just have to. Maybe some areas it's not, but for us, it's a no-brainer. You have to. So things like that. It's time to reevaluate, and I think those ultimately would lead to more dollars and cents, just simply because you changed your business practice.
Yeah, and I think part of what everybody is saying here is so great. In part of what we want everybody to think about in their business is not to get stuck in this mentality that you see Joe Schmo down the street doing it a certain way, and you go, I guess that's me for the rest of my life. Don't be the old man sitting on a front porch going, get off my lawn. Because
don't you do that?
Yes, I do that, but I am old, so it's okay. It's great here. Anyways, so I think we just have to be aware that you can change. It actually is possible, and I don't care how old you are. Here's what I love saying this, okay? Everybody says you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And my response to that is, you know what? That's true, but you can't teach a dead dog nothing. So, I mean,
I've never heard the second half of that one. I like that.
So anyways, we all can learn. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing the business, how long you've been around, what you know, what you see other people doing. We just want you to give you the ability and thought process to change. Now, Paco, go ahead. I want your 2 cents on this whole, what we've been talking about.
So I think one thing, so I agree with everyone. So instead of regurgitating what everybody said is, because I truly believe, like for me, as we were kind of redoing the numbers, I think around 50 take home is about the right amount when you consider all the expenses, and that's after taxes and so forth and so on. Now, one of the things that I think a lot of us tend to overlook is not how much we make in a year, but the cash flow coming into the business. Because we can make the X amount of money per year, but the cash flow comes at the most inconvenient times. Like Amit had just mentioned, credit cards are a no-brainer. You can send an invoice electronically, get paid within a couple minutes versus waiting a couple days for a check to come, or for them to drop off the cash, or however you get the payment. And time is more important than the money, because there are certain bills or there are certain costs that are due at a particular time where you'll have the money, but it comes in the almost opportune times because of when the bills are due. And there's a lot of things that can be done. You can speak with your vendors, because you get an idea, if you've been in business for a while, when does most of your income come in. There are other times where, you put in these process, accepting credit cards, ACH processing, you start getting creative with a lot of the things. But I think a lot of us tend to overlook cash flow, because if the cash doesn't flow at the right proper times, we will end up putting ourselves in more of a debt, especially for those starting out, with fees, with, disconnections and reconnection fees and things like that, because we know we were having the money, but we just didn't figure out the timing of everything and how it plays out for you to support your business.
Okay. And let me say this too, before we go any deeper, is that I fully understand when you're starting your business, and everybody here on this panel can attest, sometimes for the first couple of years, you're probably going to be busting your butt, knuckles dragging the ground. It is what it is. So with that being said, there is a time and place for that. And sometimes you got to hit the ground running and run as fast and hard as you can and figure things out along the way. But when you're doing it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and you haven't changed anything, yeah, there's something wrong with that. So don't think that we're saying you can't bust your butt for the first couple of years, but there should be a point where you get to that, not easy street, because there's always going to be problems, right? But there's going to be a point where it makes sense. The amount of hours you're working, the amount of time you can spend with your family, the amount of vacations you can take. I can't remember who said it earlier, but it boggles my mind. People go, I haven't been on a vacation in 10 years. And here's my response to that. Are you stupid? and not to be rude, but it's like, you know what? You need to buckle down and go, I am going to take a vacation. And Paco knows it's one of my pet peeves. And I'm going to leave my phone and my laptop, and I'm not going to remote in anywhere, and I'm not going to fix nothing while I'm gone. I'm either going to find somebody to do it, or the customers will wait till I get back. I won't be gone that long. It's not like I'm going on over to Europe for a month. Just take a weekend. Do something.
Yep.
You know? So, anyways. Speaking of, when's the last time you guys have taken a vacation?
Like every weekend.
Business trips.
That's the other thing too. A lot of people I know, they will, and especially, for some of us part-timers, we would work the weekends because that's the time that we can. And as I've gone along, because again, this is a secondary income. I don't have to make that much money. I can do it as I want. But one of the things I've looked at is my weekends actually are important to me, because I need that time to decompress, because you're working a job, you're taking care of family, you're doing all this stuff, and you want to have that time to where you can just kind of veg, do whatever. I don't want to be going 24/7, because that's just not, it gets old after a while. I've done that pretty much my whole entire life. And of course, then again, I have a full-time job, part-time business. I podcast 10 plus hours a week. So I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just making this stuff up as I go. That's been a lot of time with you guys. Anyways.
It's okay, Jeff. I don't blame you for liking us.
I do. I love the conversation, and I think this is really good. I think we've kind of, is there anything that we need to add? Because as I was bringing out these numbers and looking at the different areas and what can be charged in that area, the reason I brought out the numbers was so that people could go back and look in their own area and kind of figure things out. Let's talk about one more thing before we get off this subject, though. We were talking, and we haven't really touched on it. We touched on it a little bit, but we talked about if you want to have net income, in other words, what you keep, net is what you keep. Think about it, fishing, fish are in the net. That's what you actually keep, is the fish, okay? And so,
Wow.
you like my analogy? But what, is there a percentage that you guys think of, or do we just make this up off the top of our heads, that you go, I need to charge X amount per hour, knowing all my expenses? And I'm not saying we have to be exact, but on average, how much more do I need to charge than I actually want to make? Let's say $1 per hour. If I want to make $20 an hour, how much should I be charging? And I know it varies, and I know there's different costs for things. I get that. But on average, what do you guys think is a good point to tell everybody, hey, if you want to make $20 an hour net, what do I need to charge in order to get that 20? Because again, we're talking about a starting point.
Are you talking about the specific number, or just how does someone get to their number?
Well, I'm just thinking let's take $20 an hour. Let's come up with it. What would you say in your mind right now? What would you say you would charge in order to net $20 an hour?
Yeah, that's
or $40,000 a year. I mean,
basically what you're trying to say is, okay, let's take this quadratic equation, and then I want you to only use the first 2 decimal points. Like,
listen, I am in math class, and I've never heard that word before.
Quadratic? You've never heard quadratic?
Engineering classes, but I mean, I get what Chris is trying to say too. I mean, it's hard because it depends on what you want to invest in the business to what you want to take home. Everyone's going to end up different. Now, as far as to get to your number, I think the fact that you need to figure out what do you want to take home, per month, every week, every 2 weeks, whatever your time frame is of how much you would like to have money in your hand. And then you have to get your big number, and then you reverse engineer it from there, you know, or you go the reverse way. You go through, you know, I want to have X amount of money in my hand every week, and you start going up from there. And then once you get that, now you have your one expense, which is you, because you're paying yourself like you're a bill. You know, you are an expense. You should treat yourself as an expense because you need to pay yourself. And then you start plugging in everything else to figure out what that number is. That's how I would see it.
I mean, I think we can probably, you know, I understand your question. And so aside from the different types of overhead that are out there, like whether you have a storefront or you work out of your car, you know, whatever it is, I think you could work backwards. So let's say you wanted to make 40,000 gross, right? So that 40,000 with self-employment tax and all these other things means you need to basically have about 50,000 gross profit at the end of the year. So on top of that, there are some expenses that every business is going to have, like business liability insurance, right, some software tools, perhaps some of your own hardware you use, those sort of hard expenses. But let's just say if you're working out of your house, you have very little other overhead, no other employees, whatever it is. So I'm going to say that number is about 60,000, let's say, gross money you need to make in order to be able to very efficiently, if you do it on your own, pay yourself about 40 gross. And so if you break that down per month, that's $5,000 a month revenue. And so if you need to make $5,000 a month revenue in order to make only $40,000 a year, you know, gross income, no problem, with very little overhead, no employees, no storefront, great. That 5,000 you could work backwards and say, all right, well, maybe I'll do 20 or 25 jobs a month. And, you know, it all depends on marketing, of course. Sure. I'm saying through referral and repeat business, because a lot of people here are organic. I get that. You're not spending 5,000 a month on AdWords. So right, organically, let's say you do, you know, 25 customers a month. Then you work it forward and say, you know, can you charge, what is that, $200 each, roughly, in order to be able to do that, $5,000? And yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. $200 each of gross profit. Again, we're not saying net, gross profit, not revenue, because we're trying to, let's say you sell them a computer and then you do a virus removal, or that's not a good example. Hopefully there's no virus in the computer sold. That's biz dev maybe, but no. Let's say you do like a data transfer, new computer plus data transfer. So you bought the computer for $400 and then you did a data transfer for $100. You made $100 on a computer. That's $200 right there. So if you do 25 of those jobs per month, you're doing your, you know, $5,000 gross profit on your revenue. And then, yeah, you take home 40 at the end of the year. So your number may not be 25. Maybe you have 15 customers, maybe you have 45 customers, you shift from there. But I think that's a good way of looking at, okay, I need to make X. And if you spend an hour and a half on a data transfer, now you can work backwards and say, all right, well, I need to charge $65 an hour. The other places will be 80. But I think from a pure math standpoint, it doesn't really matter if you live in Manhattan or if you live in, you know, Timbuktu. If you want to make 40,000 a year, that gross number math has to work, and you can work backwards no matter where you live with that.
Right. I agree. That's good math. I'm glad you brought that out, Amit, because that's kind of what I was getting at. Is there is a way to break this down and make it simple. And I think you guys were saying the same thing, but I like how he broke it down for that. And I thought you were talking about staples there for a minute. You know, new computer coming in, virus. Oh, hey. Yeah, you're infected.
I heard they have to recommend a tune-up no matter what. If you take it in, a tune-up has to be recommended. Even if you like bought a brand new computer right there, and you say, "Look, I just bought a brand new computer. Like, what do you recommend?" They said you had to get a tune-up.
Yeah, let me get all the junkware off there that the OEM manufacturer on there.
And I'm not hating on Staples. I'm just saying, like, I am. I've heard. Okay.
Office Depot. Oh man, those guys.
All right, fair enough.
Now, if I can chime in one thing, the 20-hour a week billable rule is the one that I went with.
Yeah, explain it, Chris, so that people understand what you're talking about. I knew what you were talking about, but explain that for everybody else.
Sure. So because a lot of us know anyway that there's a big difference between billable and unbillable time. Yes. Right? I might work 50 hours a week in my business, but I'm only going to bill for 30. Just as a number to toss out.
Sure.
So when I was figuring out everything for myself, I figured, okay, listen, I want to have at least 20 billable hours a week. That's what I want. And how much money do I need to charge if I'm going to hit my gross goal within that time frame? So if we're using our 60,000 gross goal, I mean, you just work, like you said, you work backwards from that, right? that comes to like what, $62, $63 if I'm not messing that up, an hour.
Okay.
Because if I have 20 billable hours and I'm charging $62 or $63 an hour, I'm going to hit that 60,000 by the end of the year.
So in other words, let me break this down real simply. So when when Chris talks about billable hours, talk about bills, what he's talking about is sometimes billable time. Now, I disagree with this. I think it should be billable, and I actually do bill for it. But driving in your car might be on billable time. Okay. Doing research on how to fix something is on your own time.
Sure. Marketing isn't.
Marketing is on
right.
Your own time.
There are lots of non-billable. For me to drive to the bank with the checks that I'm going to cash, that is not billable time, but that is still time that I'm putting in my business.
Hey, Chris, in today's, well, maybe they don't have this in Canada. I just take my phone and I just,
okay,
click the little button.
All right.
And they deposit it automatically for me. I don't have to go to the bank.
That would work perfectly if every single check that I received was a Canadian dollar check.
Oh, the other problem, I'm kidding. Now, a lot of times I do get personal checks, but the business checks, I have to go to the bank. You cannot take a picture of those. They don't work.
No? There you go.
So,
but I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Is that, you need to set yourself a goal on at least how much work you're going to be doing before you can even start figuring out how much you're going to be charging an hour.
Right.
You're not always going to meet that goal. You're not always going to have 20 hours a week with a billable time. I can't think of the last time that I've had less than 20 hours of billable time in a week, but it's happened.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But as long as you set this is the minimum of what I need to hit so that I can make sure that I'm making my goals. That's what you need to build everything off of. And if you're not hitting that goal, then you need to reevaluate.
Yeah. Again, it's just a lot of times we get stuck because I've said this before. We are like firefighters. We basically go, there's a fire, we go put it out. Oh, there's another fire. We go put it out. Oh, there's another fire. And so we're constantly running around instead of taking that time. And that's what I mean. People constantly will run around like a chicken with their head cut off. Hopefully PETA doesn't, I've said skin a cat. Yeah. Anyways. So
I get some flame videos coming back to you.
Exactly. Goat Simulator. Anyways. If you look at some of these things, we want you to be able to think outside the box. Think of what you need to do. Take those numbers and not constantly, but on a regular basis, whether it's once a month, whether it's once a quarter, once every 6 months, once a year, reevaluate what you're doing, improve your processes, make things better for yourself. You're either going to save yourself time in the long run doing that, or even money sometimes.
Yep.
So it's worth it. Right. All right. Is there anything else that we didn't cover as far as, hey, here's kind of what you need to make or what you should be looking for? I think we've kind of hit everything. Is there anything anybody wants to add at this point?
I'll add something real quick about just like sort of the mindset and mentality behind how we charge. One of the questions on our application for technicians that we've added over the years is I put on there for the same flat rate virus removal. Do you think a customer should pay less if a virus removal took you 20 minutes as opposed to the normal hour or two? So let's just say for whatever reason it's you're thorough and you can do it, but it takes you like 10 to 20 minutes to do it. And the answers there for us are great because it helps give us a little picture of their mentality into, is it okay to charge $149 for 10 minutes of work? And then the answer, I believe is yes, it is, because there have been virus removals where in order to do it properly, we as a staff have sometimes spent 6-7 hours, in just different stuff. Who knows what goes wrong? Right. And so in those cases, do we charge $600 because we spent 7 hours on it? No, of course not. It's still a flat rate and they still get the same service, same guarantee and everything. And we do it right.
Right.
So it's rare, I don't want anyone listening thinking that we charge, $149 10 minutes of work regularly. We don't. But in the off case, if it does, yeah, it's appropriate. If we do the same service, same result, to charge the regular flat rate. And I think a lot of times I meet technicians or even business owners that will say, well, no, that was 15 or 20 minutes of work, so we're going to charge $40 or whatever it is. When on the flip side, they're not charging $400 because it took them a day. And virus removal shouldn't take a day, but the point is that there's a flat rate for a reason. So you have to charge something reasonable, provide a good value, and then stick to it.
Absolutely. And when those things happen, I do a jig in my office.
There you go. Video.
Jeff,
I
no,
love
no,
the
don't,
video.
Jeff.
I think no. Because it all balances out, right? And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's I agree. You're paying for. They're paying for the service. They're paying for your knowledge, and if you get it done quicker because you actually know what you're doing, that's a win-win.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times they get it back quicker because hey, you got it done faster. Oh my gosh. Hey, turn around, come back, pick it up. Really? So no, that's good.
Well, I mean, it's like making the argument with somebody that, yeah, that guy charges $50 an hour and I charge 100, but I do it in half the time.
Right.
I mean, it all comes out in the wash, right?
Exactly. All right, let's go ahead and move on into our next section. Let's go ahead and open up the phone lines. If somebody wants to chime in or ask us a question, you can do that at 1-888-697-0162. And while we're waiting for those, we'll go ahead and go into some emails.
Ooh.
All right. This says, hey guys, in response to your recent scammer show, I recently got the call from a customer that they had let somebody into their computer and given them their credit card details. Oh, I found LogMeIn Rescue and could see where a few very basic programs had been run, all the normal stuff. Funny thing was, I also found a text document on that desktop with contact details. I decided to call this number, not expecting anybody to answer. To my surprise, I got through to the people, and even got told if I called back in an hour, I could talk to the person who did that job. So I launched a verbal attack on this girl and told her she was a nasty piece of work and dishonest, and how does she live with herself, etc. She tried to defend herself, but her non-valid responses made no sense as far as virus troubleshooting and removal goes. Anyways, when I felt better, I told her that they wouldn't be getting paid as we had canceled the payment. She went ballistic and finished by the old, "Don't you ever call here again, and you'll be hearing from our lawyers." I called the client and told her, if nothing else, I felt better after telling these people what I thought of their practices. I was absolutely amazed when I got a message from the client a couple days later saying that the payment had been refunded. For a program that I use a lot in my daily work, I use Net Analyzer app on my iPhone. Ooh, iPhone. No, I'm just kidding. It's really a quick way of finding what the address range is and what the gateway and majority of client IP addresses are. I'm predominantly a domestic break fix tech. Kind regards, Tony Roberts from Tony's Tech Help. Thank you, Tony, for the email. Net Analyzer. What do you guys use? You guys use something on your phones, or using something else for checking those IP dynamic range and all that kind of stuff? Or just Wi-Fi signal?
We just tried Slitherus, I think it's called. And that seemed like it was pretty useful.
Okay. Now, is that an app on your phone?
No, sorry, that's on the computer.
Okay. All right.
And what's cool is it ended up finding things that in a home network, you don't think there's that many items, but it ended up finding so many things that was not expected, like an Amazon stick, Nest thermostat, and just random things that you forget are on your network.
Wow. Yeah, you do. Because I know is one of the things that's on my network all the time, which is weird, is my Roku box. For some reason, it puts a gateway on the network. I have no idea why. I'm like, what is that even used for? But anyways, I never looked into it because I don't use it, but it's there. Right.
I think my favorite ever was when I had to track down an unknown item on someone's network, and it turned out to be their fridge. It was like I think it was an LG.
Really?
Yeah. None of the services were active for it, but apparently you can keep track of everything in your fridge, and it'll auto order your groceries for you.
Okay.
Yeah, that weirded me out a little bit.
Auto order your groceries. Well,
yeah,
I have the ability to do that.
But we're in Canada, so we don't get those services.
Okay. Very cool. All right, let's move on to the next email. And this is, let's see, wanted to reach out and see if any of the hosts has used Profile Migration Wizard for domain migrations and what their thoughts are on this tool. I've used it several times when adding computers to a domain to retain the user's data on the new domain profile without having to back up the data and migrate it over to a new profile. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Great show, and look forward to hearing each episode. Michael Woodward, Excel Computer Services. Thank you, Michael, for the email. Profile Migration Wizard. I've never used it.
Right.
If John
Remember
was
that
here,
one.
he'd probably say, "Oh yeah, I tried that." Or Marvin. Oh yeah, I've used it. Yeah, I've never had to. When you guys are migrating profiles, what do you normally use to do that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've done it a couple times, and the easiest way in the end I found is just put up another domain controller, let it replicate, and then just take the other, like basically demote the old one.
Okay.
Takes a little while, but it works. Whereas I've tried some of the tools, and it's just always something goes wrong.
That's never good.
Yeah.
That's never good. Anyone else?
I've always just set up roaming profiles,
Okay.
and then it's done. There's not a whole lot to do after that.
I think he's asking about changing out the domain controller, though.
Let's see.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I misunderstood.
Well, it's also profile migration wizard. It sounds like it takes the profile and backs it up, or basically when adding computers to a domain to retain the user data on the new domain profile.
Okay.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, roaming profiles, yeah.
Yeah, roaming profiles is the easiest way to do that, especially if you have people working on multiple workstations.
Absolutely.
All right, and we have a phone call coming in. This is Kurt from PC Doctor from Minnesota. 1 second. And let me unmute him.
Hi, Kurt.
Hey, Kurt, how you doing?
Uh-oh.
I'm doing excellent.
Jeff, we can't hear him.
You can't hear him? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
That's weird. Okay. I can hear him just fine.
Well, that's fantastic.
Go ahead, and I will relay your question, and hopefully this is coming through, because I had, maybe when I redid something, I messed something up. Anyways, did you have a question? Okay.
It's PETA calling.
Appreciate that. All right. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and thanks for calling in, Kurt. Bye. All right. Sorry about that. I'll have to work on the technical difficulties. Fortunately, we will have that in the audio podcast, just not on this one. But he said he loves the subject we were talking about, and have a happy new year, or wishing everyone here a happy new year, and just loves to hear this type of information. So I hopefully it was useful to a lot of people that are listening. All right, let's go ahead and continue on. Let's see. We have Computer Repair Podcast Clan. You might have talked about this before, but just in case, I was wondering how other tech support organizations are managing cloud storage services in an Active Directory domain environment. I have 2 managed service clients who want to leverage Dropbox Pro in the environment, and I'm trying to pull together the pluses and minuses of leveraging both on-premise file server and a cloud environment using Dropbox Pro. How are others managing this environment? What is the best practice? Can it be done? Would be interested in hearing you discuss a topic during one of the shows. All the best, Chris from Grant Tech. Thank you, Chris. And I sent Chris an email back and said, Marvin B would say Dropbox is not a server.
No. Dropbox is a file sharing service. Done.
Right.
Now, if you have, let's say, a laptop that's off-site and you don't want to deal with VPN because for some reason, maybe you can install Dropbox on the server and have it replicate those folders so that you can access them from the laptop. But if you already have a server, if you already have a central on-premise file sharing system, why are you not just setting up a VPN? It's a lot more secure. It's a lot easier to deal with, and it doesn't have the extra expense of adding Dropbox.
Gotcha. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I can say why not to go with Dropbox, even though that it is not a server, restoring files are a pain because you have to do it one at a time. You can't do it in bulk, from my understanding.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. You know, a lot of even some backup services are like that. It's hard to, and really, depending on how much information, you really have to. I like a service where you can basically, they'll send you a hard drive with all your info on it. And that's probably the quickest way to get everything back up and running. And that's why I always tell everybody, have several backups. Local, couple of them, cloud, and whatever's on your main machine.
Yeah, just make sure you don't leave the cleaning tape in.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
For tape drives. People still use those, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, there are cloud services, and I know a lot of people are pushing stuff to the cloud, but at this point, I would not use or trust Dropbox as a server per se. That's just my 2 cents. All right. This is the last email for the show. This says, Jeff, Paco, John, and crew. I especially enjoyed the show number 214 tool bag. At one point during the show, you mentioned that there was a tool that John was going to show you how to use. This led to an idea for a suggestion on the show. Could you pick a tool that you'd like to share with everyone and then demonstrate the use of this tool? It does not necessarily have to be the whole show. It could be a segment. It would not have to be added to the show every week. It could be whenever a tool is discovered, which is worthy of such discussion and demo. Happy New Year to all. Thanks for all the work and information everyone shares on this podcast network. Jerry Bransfield, another Chicagoan. And thank you, Jerry, for that. Appreciate it. What a great idea. And we're going to see if we might be able to implement something like that on the live show. Probably won't go into audio format, but we'll add it on the show. If that sounds good to you guys and you're interested in us doing something like that, just send a quick email to podnutz@podnutz.com, and we'll get that information, and we'll see if we can put something together, and maybe every once in a while test out a piece of software and kind of point to the things that we do, or maybe go through the process that we do in using a tool. And the tool he was referring to was, I have it, I just haven't used it, is UVK, or Ultra Virus Killer, was one of the programs that I just didn't understand from the get-go. So, I mean, I understand it, but I was looking at all these different buttons, and I'm like going, I didn't have time to mess with it. So I haven't as of yet. I've had it for a while, so I have not used it. Because when I have to do something, I've got to do it quick. I don't like stuff sitting on my desk. Anyways. All right. With that being said, I think, where are we at? I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to end off the show. I think we've had plenty of good information. And I think I fixed the issue with, I just figured out what was wrong with the audio. So we should be all right for next time. Amit, where can people find you at, and what you're up to and all your escapades?
Absolutely. TechVoo.com. I don't know about all, but TechVoo.com. It's TechVoo, or TechVooFranchise.com if they're so interested in the franchise side of the business. Yeah, thank you for having me on it. This was a great thing.
Awesome. Appreciate you coming out. And also, and I should have wrote down the number, but not too long ago, I think maybe it was 476 or something like that. Amit and I did a Podnutz Daily, and he talks all about his business and his franchise. So if you have not heard that, definitely go and check that out. Got a lot of good information and a lot of great ideas, and him and I are in the same wavelength, so we understand each other and agree a lot. So
we have similar humor too. It sounds like,
unlike Chris and I, who just
yeah. No.
Chris, where can people find out more about what you're up to? Okay, next. No.
Oh, nowhere now. So I'm from Remote Support Tech Team. We're a white label IT company, so we do work for you. If you want to know more about us, you can go to www.rstechteam.com. You can email us at info@rstechteam.com, or you can give us a call, 866-568-2813.
Awesome. Appreciate you coming out again, and it's been fun. Now, Paco, where can people find out what you are up to?
Well, first, it is just to confirm, Podnutz Daily 476 is the episode with Amit. So for those who want to hear about his story, check that episode out. For those who want to find out where I'm at, I will be here every week at 3 p.m. Central Time at the Computer Repair Live Show. Those can also find me over at the Computer Business Podcast over with my friend Matthew Rodella biweekly every other Tuesday over at Your Friendly Neighborhood Computer Guy, YFNCG.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you coming out and sharing again. It's been a great discussion all across the board. All right, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over podnuts.com/Computer Repair Podcast Live. I know it's long, but it's worth it. Join in on the conversation by calling in live and hanging out in the chat room. We have fun there. We have audio available over at podnuts.com or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. Send your questions and feedback to podnuts@podnuts.com. And if you want to leave a voicemail, you can do that at 1-888-697-0162. To support this show, go to patreon.com/Computer Repair Podcast. And I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast.